Hey guys, another semi-professional here bringing you the Season 8 Episode 3 recap of Game of Thrones. We are going to blitz through this. A lot happened and there was a lot of things we'll talk about in terms of my opinion. We'll blitz through it because we have Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 4 about to hit tonight, and I'll get a recap for that on tomorrow night. Had a busy week, so this is definitely one of the most delayed previews we're going to have, but let's jump straight into it. The episode opens with Sam getting talked to, a lot of boring intro stuff, but we get to the really cool first part where Melisandre shows up, lights up the blades of all the Dothraki, and sends them charging basically with Jorah into the darkness, which they can't see what's happening to them, but they see at the very last moment the undead horde when it's too late. Very, very poor military decision for the horses to just charge straight on and not to be flanking from the sides, but that happens. With the Dothraki in a really cool visual. It is a cool visual with all the blades flickering out one by one until none are left. That does send Dany into action. We see that. But this next image is when the undead then charge forward and they break ranks with the Unsullied and the other men. Ed is our first casualty. He saves Sam from being the first casualty and then becomes the first casualty himself. And really the living are getting their asses handed to them by the undead until the dragons get involved. And we have the first amazing image here. Dragons getting involved, and it's just such an amazing imagery there of the dragon flying across, lighting up the undead with that fog that the White Walkers are bringing in. So we do see that Jon tries to kill the White Walkers by sending Rhaegal down at them, but they bring the fog in, really nerfing the dragons quite a bit, reducing their impact, especially as we see that Davos, they're trying to flag the dragons to light the trench as the undead are breaking through, but the dragons can't really see the signal and can't really find their way to the trenches. So that is when our next thing happens. We really see that Melisandre steps up. She is such a really cool visual scene as well. We see that just as the undead are about to take her, the flames light up and ignite them, and they protect Winterfell briefly. However, the Night King instructs his minions to just lay themselves down in big heaps of bodies to create a barrier that allows more of the undead through and break the ranks of the trenches. So basically then the undead have just ruined the plans of the living. The Night King is winning the battle so far. Definitely momentum in their side. They're pushing through. The living have been pushed back into behind the walls of Winterfell. And it only seems now that they're starting to really rush and try to man the walls, which seems like a mistake, really. They should have been ready to go manning the walls from the very beginning, but now they're bringing reinforcements up there, trying to stop the dead from climbing the walls. But we see that fail, and then really we get into our second death, we've seen Ed die, and obviously we've seen thousands of unnamed people die as well, from the Unsullied getting wiped out, the Dothraki getting wiped out, and just loads of ranks that were under Brienne's command getting wiped out. But another one here that hits us is Lady Mormont. As a giant breaks through the door, it just swats her aside initially, and it's just creating chaos inside. But pride and stubbornness take her, and she charges at the giant. Basically gets crushed in its grip before finally just stabbing with that dragon glass into the eye, dropping the giant, killing it instantly, but obviously dying herself in the process. But what a heroic way for little Giantsbane to go, if you kind of want to follow the theory that Tormund says he got with a bear in the wild, the Mormont sigil being the bear. Tormund is Giantsbane, and then Lyanna Mormont dies being Bane of a giant. Kind of ties all that together loosely. Not really a firm theory, but it does kind of loosely tie that together. It's kind of nice that she did die on a high like that, where she got to take out one of the biggest threats by being one of the littlest kind of fighters. And then we kind of go into this montage of everyone just basically just taking on loads of people. We think they're all going to be dying. We don't know how anyone's going to survive this. The dead have now swarmed the walls and are inside Winterfell. Grey Worm I thought for sure was going to go, but he is a lethal fighter, and I guess just keeps himself alive by just constantly killing, even though I'm not sure how many other Unsullied survived. Very, very few. Most of his ranks, in fact, Grey Worm himself, removed their ability to retreat any further from the trenches because he was the one who dropped the path that was allowing them to get back, making them most of them have their last stands on the opposite side of the trench, which was not successful. So most of the Unsullied were dead, and Grey Worm had to consign to that. We see Jaime and Brienne fighting valiantly, but they are pinned against the wall for large sections. How they survived that onslaught, I mean, when they seem to be overrun multiple times and they seem to somehow not be getting ripped apart. Similarly, Sam, I mean, his plot armor is thicker than than the walls of Winterfell itself. I mean, the guy is getting just constantly. At the very beginning, Ed saves him, and at one point, when Jon, you think Jon's about to save him, but Jon looks away again later on. You think Sam's done for here; he's being left, but no, he manages to save himself, and they just start crying, and that's basically Sam just crying for the rest of the episode. We move on then to Aria, who is just. This is basically her episode, I think, really. She is using her new weapon, taking loads of people out. She is just flipping and somersaulting over undead bodies down stairways. She goes inside then and has a few moments inside where she's just creeping around kind of like the libraries and stuff. And while all that's happening overhead, we're getting some little stuff going on. There is a really cool overhead fight with the dragons going on, where we get them above the clouds, are chasing the Night King. Daenerys and Jon are trying to find their way around. They come into this kind of clearing, but then the Night King attacks from below. It's this really cool visual. We see some damage happening to all the dragons. Really, are getting a bit of, there's some clawing and flesh being ripped and things happening. The difference being that Daenerys and Jon are not intentionally trying to kill their dragons, whereas the Night King doesn't really care if his gets damaged or not. I mean, it'll just stay alive. It doesn't care how much damage it takes. It's an undead being. Meanwhile, as I said below, Arya is sneaking around. She gets help from Beric, and here's the image of Beric's death. So Beric the Hound help Arya to get through the different halls and corridors of Winterfell. They do manage to survive and get into a room, but Beric has been stabbed so many times he succumbs to his wounds. The Hound does survive, and in this room where they get themselves into, they find Melisandre, who reminds us of the callback to how she had told Arya that, green eyes, brown eyes, blue eyes, very specifically, although the order had changed. Blue eyes was higher in the order before, but Arya was going to shut them all. So it kind of sets Arya off on her path to basically keep kicking ass is basically what she's sending her to do. So yeah, we're flying through the episode now. Lots of stuff has happened. We do have a moment which is really, really cool, where Daenerys does manage to get to the Night King. He's now off of his dragon, and she tries to, she says Dracarys, tries to light him up using Drogon, but we finally find out that he is impervious, it looks like, to dragon fire, which a kind of a bad way of doing it personally. I think he should have either had some way to avoid the dragon fire and kept it a mystery, but he just takes it full on and smiles. So yeah, it shows he's no fear of dragon fire. Then Daenerys gets knocked off her dragon because the Night King has risen to dead to stop Jon from getting to him. Daenerys comes in and burns a bunch of the dead around Jon, but lands Drogon for some reason to do that, and then the undead start climbing on Drogon and stabbing him, and it looks like he's in a lot of danger. He flies off to try and shake off all of the undead from him, but he also knocks off Daenerys. It looks like she is done for. There's no way she's going to survive until Jorah Mormont comes in and starts slaying around him like Jorah has never fought before. He fights extremely valiantly, but of course Jorah is going to succumb to the wounds he's going to take here, similar to how Beric succumbed to his wounds when he was defending Arya. So we're showing a lot of characters who are fulfilling their roles and their arcs in terms of defending other characters and helping other characters get to do what they needed to do. Beric's mission was he was being brought back by the Lord of Light for some purpose he was not aware of. It was clearly to get Arya safe so that she could fulfill her mission. And similarly, Jorah has fulfilled his arc by ensuring that Daenerys can continue and potentially fulfill her prophecy of getting onto the Iron Throne. Meanwhile, while the fighting is happening there with Jorah sacrificing himself, the Night King has relieved himself from that area and is now taking the Nightwalkers in through the Weirwood where Bran and Theon have been. To give Theon credit here, he really, his character was just such a underwhelming character for so long, with the whole Reek arc and things like that, where he was being tortured. He's a tortured soul, and he's, even though he abandons his sister, he finally, in the last few episodes, he gets his sister back. He goes back to Winterfell, and then, Bran thanks him for what he's doing. And Theon, in fairness, and the Iron Man do put up a pretty good fight at keeping Bran safe. Bran goes down to being the last man, and, he's done well, and, or Theon does well, and Bran thanks him. He's back home where he belongs. But once the Night King walks in with the Nightwalkers into the Weirwood, Theon is not long for the world. And Theon doesn't cower. He doesn't stay back. He doesn't wait for the Night King to come to him. I mean, he shows in his final moments that he has bravery within him, and he just charges at the Night King, trying to do something. It's, I guess it's brave, but it's also stupid. He doesn't stand a chance, and the Night King just counters him and just runs him through, and that's the last we're going to see of Theon. It's the end of his arc. So the Night King comes up to Bran. He reaches for his sword. I mean, this is it. The Bran and the Triad Raven. The Night King's going to complete his mission here. Much like how, Thanos got to get the snap. Spoiler from Infinity War if you haven't seen it yet a year ago. The Night King's going to succeed here, it looks like. And we're like, okay, wow, they're actually going to do it this way. But no. Right as he's about to grab the blade and swing for it, out of nowhere comes Aria fulfilling her prophecy. And I guess the overall prophecy of, you can argue technically she's Azor Ahai, but in a way, not really. There's not the whole Lightbringer and plunging a sword into your loved one kind of thing. That's not all happening, but she is the one stopping the Night King, which is supposed to be the prince or princess that was promised. It was the prince that was promised for many seasons, but that was cleared up by Melisandre saying that it prince or princess by High Valyrian translations. So yeah, the Night King is slayed, and it's just in a kind of an I'm happy that Aria got to do it. She's a great character, and she is such a badass now as a trained assassin, basically. But while all this is happening in the Weirwood, and Jon is fighting the undead valiantly, he's doing a lot of stuff outside, but then basically while this is going on, he's just playing peekaboo with an undead dragon, and that's kind of, I don't know, it just seemed pointless. Why was he, he was trying to get there. I get it. He was trying to get there, but if they're fulfilling prophecy, he would get there. He doesn't, and it's up to Aria to do it, and she does it very, very well. And then we finish up, the dawn is coming, and as Melisandre had promised to Davos, there was no need to slay her. She'd be dead by the dawn. And yeah, true to her word, she takes off her necklace that was her facade of the youth and that she was keeping, and she just ages rapidly as she's walking out into the snow. And really nice CG of her just basically disintegrating basically into how many hundreds of thousands of years old she was. So yeah, overall then, if we were going to recap the episode, and I'm going to bring back up an image from earlier because I think it's just amazing. This is my favorite image of the episode. Yeah, it's an amazing image. So yeah, basically just I guess overall from the episode, to talk about the complaints, there were complaints about the brightness and how people couldn't see things going on. If you had the contrast settings in your TV the right way, you could. I mean, my own TV is set up kind of for video game settings, so for me, color and contrast and brightness are set up to be nice and high so I can see my video games. And similar to Game of Thrones, I was able to see things quite well. I had no real issue there with the quality of my images. We have a pretty new TV, so maybe that's one of the reasons too. But yeah, I can understand that if you couldn't see it, would be annoying, would be frustrating. But then from plot points in terms of when Jorah marches off with the Dothraki and they're all getting wiped out. First of all, that's a really bad military decision. But then second of all, the fact that Jorah gets back from plot armor and isn't killed there and then, and we don't see Ghost, but we know from the preview of next episode that he still did survive. So Ghost didn't die there, even though he was charging into the undead as well. Plot armor for Ghost. Yeah, so there's a lot of things like that where there's kind of weak plot points, certain characters surviving. I mean, when you have Brienne and JB up against the wall, that's kind of, their moment to die. Yeah, lots of stuff like that, really. Even I didn't even mention the crypts through all of this. All the, the Varys, Melisandre, Tyrion, and Sansa, and loads of other, the common folk of Winterfell are hiding in the crypts. Of course, when the Night King raises his arms to bring back all the undead, or all the dead on the field back to being undead, he's also having a similar effect on all the dead in the crypts, raise up and become undead and start attacking all the people in the crypts. And again, yeah, for no real reason other than just plot armor, no main characters died, and they're just a bunch of people who are villagers, and Arya manages to get to the Night King in time to wipe out and stop everything. Once the Night King dies, everything else just falls and dies as well. So everyone is saved. Yeah, it's do I think that all this time, 10 years of build up to have one episode encompass the battle with the undead? No, I think they kind of had to, because of the way things have timed out now, they rushed way too much into that episode. Could have dragged out into multiple smaller skirmishing battles, things like that. Do I think the Night King being killed kind of easily? And is he killed for good? Maybe not, but we've only got 3 more episodes left, so I don't really see them doing a whole return arc other than for him to be killed in a similar fashion again by possibly Jon, just to give Jon the Azor Ahai prophecy. But again, he will be killed probably in short order because they don't have time to invest in him now. They have to deal with King's Landing, Cersei, and the Gold Company. I mean, that's all still had to happen. And the aftermath. I'm assuming we're going to get a bit of aftermath too, in terms of, you know, closing out any characters that manage to survive their arcs and closing out how they're going to leave things. So yeah, that's all still to come. They're going to squeeze it into the last 3 episodes. Overall, I thought it was some of the shots, some of the cinematography was amazing. You know, despite, if you could see it, I could, and I was happy with it. This shot I have on the screen right now, I thought was amazing, as the storm clouds were coming in from the blizzard that the undead were conjuring, shall we say, and the dragons are just blowing up the undead along the field. I just think that was just great graphics. And a lot of fight stuff was cool. I mean, all of Aria's fighting was great. The little moment where she was sneaking around the Winterfell library, that was really cool. Yeah, I just thought a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, the undead dragon was awesome, but the fact that Jon was just pinned under a rock by it, I mean, it justifies why he couldn't get there. I mean, there wasn't a dragon he couldn't get past. But then the fact that he just stands up and yells at it, you know, not knowing that Arya is about to stab the Night King, so basically he was kind of sacrificing himself just because he was frustrated. Okay. So yeah, I'm not sure if Jon is the Prince's Promise, really. He's doing some dumb stuff. So overall, I'm not going to keep going on. Tonight's episode is coming up, but I'll definitely get my review of that out sooner. We have a lot of things to clarify in terms of, you know, where everyone sits now, how they're going to deal with all the dead and the rebuilding of Winterfell. Can Bran maybe become, you know, take up his ancestor's name and become, you know, the second of Bran the Builders? Or will Sansa remain in Winterfell? You know, there's always meant to be a Stark in Winterfell, so who's going to stay behind in Winterfell and rebuild while the rest push down to King's Landing? I have a feeling Sansa will stay behind because, you know, the North want to be independent of all this. They've just, their ranks are completely depleted. They need to rebuild Winterfell. She may, obviously Jon's going to take whatever forces want to come with him down south with Daenerys. But I think Sansa's going to keep quite a large force back. Also protecting Winterfell and protecting the North. So yeah, that's kind of where things sit now. We just have to see what's going to happen tonight in a few hours' time. Actually 1 hour's time from now. So yeah, episode 4 on the way. I can't wait to watch that myself. It'll be in daytime, so all of you people who were complaining about the vision of the last one, you will be able to see this episode at least, because the long night was a hint that things were going to be dark. And you know, turn your brightness up if you're going to have issues with that. Turn all the lights, surrounding lights from the TV off, so you don't have glare on the TV for nighttime episodes. I mean, you know, that's just, I didn't have an issue myself, but I can understand a lot of people did. So yeah, that's my theories, guys. I like the episode. I do feel things were rushed, and I feel that the Night King kind of got bitched out because, you know, he's just this awesome build-up of a character who just seemed so unstoppable. Gets stabbed by one dagger one time, you know. But it doesn't build Aria to being this amazing character that she could sneak in and go undetected until the last moment and get the strike in. That's pretty awesome. And she effectively, for me now, is the princess that was promised. But we'll see how that plays out in tonight's episode and the final 3 episodes. But guys, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you liked. If you did, please leave a like below and a subscription. If you haven't yet, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. And I'll be back to you guys tomorrow with my episode 4 breakdown, and yeah, we'll go from there. So thanks guys, and see you all next time.